You did.
Just found in the room.
My question is, do you outrank either one of them?
No,
Yes.
I am, but I got the least amount of years of service.
But the most valuable one.
Listen to them.
Is it your turn to buy donuts and coffee?
We don't even do that. Maybe we should start
I think that's what they said your job was tonight.
afterwards.
No, now. I'm supposed to bring them.
Now we'll be late.
Whenever you're ready, Doug, it's ready.
Okay. 7:28.
Do it a couple, whatever you want to do.
All right,
You're in charge.
I'm gonna turn it back over to you, Herman.
Glasses. I got some downstairs. You want to borrow?
That one's 7:30. All right, let's call this meeting to order. We're having a joint meeting with the township trustees and city council to discuss this feasibility study. Have a presentation this evening. Please call the roll.
Schmidt,
Here.
Whitaker,
Here.
Wright, Baumgardner,
Here.
Ely,
Here,
Godwin,
Here.
Rogers.
Here,
Okay, I'll turn it over to you, Ryan, to see if they have a presentation for us this evening, I understand.
Yes, so John D. Pruner Associates are here to do a presentation. They've been putting together this feasibility study. I'll let them do introductions, but the presentation will be 45 minutes to an hour. And then if we could wait, and we'll answer questions at the end and kind of go from there and see if we can get this thing accomplished.
Very good.
Gentlemen?
Very good. Thank you. And we appreciate the opportunity to come before council and the trustees to present the findings of our feasibility study for the township of Greenville and the city of Greenville, your fire departments. My name is John Pruer. I'm the principal of the company, and joining me this evening is Bill Shaw. He's an associate of the company and also worked quite a bit on this report. It was a collaborative effort of our team, but we were the two primary individuals that did the work for you. We both have extensive background in fire service. We've both been chiefs for a number of years in different departments, different staffing configurations, different type areas that we've provided service for. We've formed a company, and we do a variety of consulting work for cities and townships, looking at their fire departments and identifying different needs and providing solutions for them. And we appreciate the opportunity to have done this report for you all. It certainly was a very enjoyable report to work on and all. We prepared a slide presentation to go through the report and basically explain our methodology and how we developed the report, how we collected the data and presented it, and then also to go through the various segments of the report to highlight the primary features of each section, so that it's an opportunity to kind of capsulize that whole report, and also with it being televised to the community, it gives the citizen an opportunity to see the report in a microcosm. So with that, we'd like to begin our presentation. Yeah. We'll go back to the beginning. There we go. Oh. Oh. No.
Good.
Okay, we're there, right? Very good. Okay. Our task was to explore a joint fire EMS district feasibility study for the township of Greenville and the city of Greenville, and to evaluate that issue. In doing the report, we took a look at all facets of the fire and EMS delivery systems. We went through every aspect of how your departments function and operate. We did spent a great deal of time evaluating the fire department operations, the administration and command structure of the organizations. And also we did a community survey looking at the makeup of Greenville Township, how it's structured, also what we see as future development in the area. So not only were we looking at where things are today, but where they would be in the future for you in doing that type of an evaluation. We took a look at the communication systems in the county and the city, and the impact of those upon the department. The financial aspects of the actual operating of the departments fiscally, and also the variables in financial ways to provide service. In addition to the study, we took a look at the support services, and those include training, fire prevention, fire investigation, public education, to evaluate those so that we saw how they are functioning and how they could be adjusted to provide even better services. All of that came together in a blending of services, which is what we were tasked with, looking at the feasibility. But to do that, we had to study all the other aspects, so we had a good opportunity to have our hands around how your departments work and blend together. When we did the study, there were, first we started with meetings. We met with the chiefs and the command staff of each department and spent a great deal of time with them. We also met with labor from both departments and evaluated their needs from all aspects and also their input. We did a data collection review. There were exhaustive questionnaires and information provided by both departments for our review and things. And we would like to compliment both chiefs and departments for their timely and thorough data that they provided. It was a pleasure working with both organizations. They did a fine job of sharing and being responsive to our questions. We did on-site visits of the departments. We did audits of current operations and the services provided both by ourselves and other members of our team that came in and did the audits. We measured everything within the organization against current standards. NFPA, National Fire Protection Association, is our benchmark. That's by which all fire service functions are measured and graded throughout the country. Coupled with that was looking at OSHA standards and labor standards within Ohio and the uniquenesses of our state. All of that became a measuring criteria for us. Coupled with that is our professional experience. As I said, we both have extensive years as chiefs, plus we have other people that serve on our team, and we did a collaborative review of your issues, and so we reached a consensus between our organization as a best approach. The data that we collected and all, once we had it, went back out to the chiefs to verify that we were addressing a particular issue correctly, that we were on target with how it actually worked within the township and the city. Okay, the report is broken into several areas. The first is the executive summary. We took the entire report and condensed it to a 15-page executive summary to give you an overview, thumbnail sketch of the report. And also we took the 57 recommendations we made in the report and reduced that into a recommendation matrix, which brings everything together, assigns who we feel should be the responsible section to deal with it. We gave a criticality grade to it, whether or not it would impact your insurance services office insurance rating by making those improvements, and tried to project whether it's something that could be done today or whether it would need some additional funding or a major funding initiative. And we tried to lay that out. From that, then we went into doing 8 sections of the report to break things down to identify particular areas and have it all cataloged for your review. As we look at the first section of the report is the demographics of the community. The population is for the township is 17,613. Of that, 13,227 are in the city of Greenville. It's the center, as you know, for this area, for Darke County, and I would think even into some of the surrounding fringes of other counties. Greenville is a very defined center of business and community within the area. It's a diverse community. If you look at it, it has a well-defined downtown area. It has medical facilities, a lot of nursing homes, a fairly large hospital, industrial setups and all. It's a microcosm of America. And they're well-defined in the area. Growth is slow but steady. You're on the outer ring of Metro Dayton, and that may grow here in some time, but we don't see it within the foreseeable future being much of a change in population for your area. Dependent upon how things go, it may be, but it would not be for several years. Predominantly a middle age to older community. is the makeup of the population. Okay. Bill, do you want to go into this section? Okay, very good. Sorry about that. Okay. This section gets into the intro to emergency services delivery. And we put this in purposely for newer council members, trustees who may not be well acquainted or learning how fire departments function, and also looking at a citizen that is reading the report and has a very brief understanding of how a fire department functions. There are a fire operation and a major emergency operation are a dynamic, growing, complex set of factors all intertwining, and it's a very involved process. From that, we found that there are three primary things that impact on a fire situation. One is the time, from the time the call is received till it's dispatched, till they're en route, they're on the scene and set up. Water supply is a primary function to ensure that there is adequate water. In the city, you rely on your water system. In the township, you rely on tankers and tanker shuttle systems to get the water there. But it's an involved process. Personnel, having adequate personnel that are properly trained to function, to come together to handle a fire is paramount. And all of these interact on each other. The fire growth and reflex time shows how fast a fire can expand from ignition until it flashes over, where the entire room is involved in fire, making it's unable to be inhabited, and the fire is spreading beyond the area of origin. It's a very dynamic, growing thing. Fire is a situation that doesn't understand politics. It doesn't understand budgets. It only understands its ability to cause damage. And this goes through showing how a fire can progress and grow. Staffing, this is what NFPA recommends for certain levels of hazards, classifications in the area. And this shows what they recommend being the amount of personnel and apparatus to respond to these types of emergencies. So we go into showing how they arrive at that number and function in that area. Okay, looking at EMS, another portion in this intro to services shows how a defibrillation affects survival in a person having a heart attack. The longer the time goes, the less opportunity there is to successfully revive the individual. Time is critical in an emergency medical situation. Okay.
We moved on to look at the staffing levels that you have currently in your departments. And we looked at three methods to evaluate the staffing. The first one is the Nfpa Standards, 1710 and 1720. The reason we use two standards, 1710 is for all career or substantially career departments, and 1720 is for volunteer or substantially non-career departments. We have both, so we, instead of trying to make one work for the other, we evaluated them separately based on those standards that applied to the departments. We also looked at the Ohio Industrial Commission, also known as the Ohio Administrative Code. There are requirements in there for firefighter equipment and some operations, the most notable being a rule commonly referred to in the fire service as 2 in, 2 out. It calls for 4 personnel on the scene, 2 people to be inside a hazardous environment doing rescue work, and the same number of people outside to rescue those folks if they were to get into trouble. That's an Ohio law. The difference here in between that and the NFPA is a standard that is recommended to be followed as a best practice, industry best practice. Of course, the Ohio Industrial Commission, the Ohio Administrative Code is the law in Ohio. And then we also looked at the local staffing levels that you have, what is on duty, and both the departments use a recall system, which is very popular in many areas across the state and the nation. It does give the departments a lot of flexibility to staff for what normally occurs during the 24-hour shift. But then when there are larger incidents, you bring in people from home, off-duty people. That helps keep costs down while still providing you the ability to handle some of those larger incidents. A lot of these standards are met by the department, by the 1710, the 1720, through automatic and mutual aid. That is allowed by both of those standards in order to meet the recommended NFPA standards. Departments are allowed to use automatic and mutual aid, and both departments do that, and that's how they come in compliance with those standards. Well, in regards to EMS call response, currently both the departments are at the advanced life support level, which is paramedic level service, and that is the highest possible level of service. So we can't really see a lot of improvement there as far as training or service level. In regards to the EMS time commitment, what we looked at is what is the impact of the emergency medical calls in relation to availability for other calls, whether they be for more EMS calls or a fire call or in any other category. And we find that the percentage of station coverage time for the personnel are committed to EMS incidents and unavailable for fire response. So we judge that to, you have staff on duty, but as they get called away, they can only handle that one emergency. How often is that happening? How much time are they away from the fire station, making them unavailable? What we found, the city of Greenville, the EMS incidents impact the overall operation less than 1%. The reason it's so low is there's no transport time there. City of Greenville does respond as first responders. They do go on some medical calls, but their involvement as that is relatively short. We assumed about a 15 to 16 minute time from time of call, dispatch, arrival, treatment, and then once that treatment of the patient is completed, then the ambulance that is run by the township would take the patient to the hospital. So the involvement for the Greenville Fire Department while they're there is for much less of the call because then you get into the transport and those, which makes it a little bit longer. For the township, obviously, it's going to be significantly more because they do respond to the call, they do treatment as well, and also transport. So the impact of EMS operations on the township staffing is significantly more because their personnel are tied up, particularly if it's busy at the hospital. They may have to wait a little bit for an open bed or to be seen by the staff to do proper patient transfer. So there's a lot of reasons why they could be increased there. As far as operations, we looked at the current operations of the department. Greenville Township has obviously 1 station, 58 total personnel, 21 career, 24 part-time, and 13 volunteer. So because of the 24 part-time and 13 volunteer, that classifies them as a substantially non-career fire department, so they would be evaluated by NFPA 1720. They have about 9.7 calls per day, a little shy of 10 calls per day. and 92% of those calls are EMS calls. We did find that 69% of the calls are between the hours of 9 a.m. and 9 p.m., which is not unusual. In looking at this, and even in our own departments, as we do the analysis of calls during time of day, we find that very frequently during a 12-hour period during the daytime, it's almost a perfect bell curve. It starts very low. It's sometime in the morning, 6, 7, in this case, 9 a.m., rises up to a peak, and then starts to decrease back down, which would be probably in line with the activity that's found here in the area, as far as people being out and about, people coming to shop, workers coming to the area, that type of thing. The township also has an ISO rating, class 5 and 5Y. For Greenville, they have 1 station, 25 personnel, which is 20 career and 5 auxiliary. Again, NFPA 1710 was the standard applied because of those numbers. They have on average 2 calls per day, but 75.8% of those are fire calls. So the fire situation for the Greenville Fire Department is much more significant. Not to say that all of those are always a fire, but of course the personnel don't know that when they're alerted to an alarm that's gone off or somebody thinks that there is a fire. We don't know until we get there. So they have to treat it as a fire until they can definitively determine that there is no emergency. In their case, 58% of the calls are between 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. and their ISO rating is class 4. So we looked at community hazard levels as well. So those hazard levels are based on the fire hazard classes that Mr. Brewer showed in the previous slide of low, medium, and high hazards as far as structures. In this area, there's all of those. You have residential housing, which would be the low hazard. You have the medium hazard of some commercial buildings, and then of course the high hazards, the hospitals, nursing homes, and some of the larger structures that you have in the area. We also looked at the department staffing as we just went through, and then how the emergency medical response impacts that staffing as well. Did that. And then we also looked at apparatus. We looked at the current fleet of both departments. We looked at the condition of those vehicles. Most of those vehicles are in very serviceable condition. So both departments are fairly well set in that area.
Okay, the next section of the report deals with support services. And as we talked about, that's the variety of things that support the fire and EMS delivery system. The first of that being training. We had 13 recommendations for enhancing and improving the quality of training for both the township and the city departments. In looking at the structure of the departments, we felt that the assignment of the township training officer to be the overseer of training for both departments would be a good move, because it would be one individual coordinating the programs, laying out the curriculum, the development of the program and all. The township just added a training officer within the last year. He's making an impact in their organization. It's very evident. And this would be a person that already has that skill set that could enhance and improve the level of training to do the combined training. Developing a training team of all the instructors in both organizations and letting them work in concert with the training officer and train as a cadre of instructors, choosing the people that have the best skill set to deliver a particular program, and drawing upon their talents and abilities, but working as an overall team would be in the best interest of both departments. Expanded and standardized training. going to the point of having a drill every day for both departments. That there be a training opportunity as best that the schedule would permit being given each day. Doing standardized training so that the operation of doing certain fireground functions be standardized between departments, so that if you had a situation, you had a crew made up of part township firefighters and part city firefighters performing an evolution, they know the evolution. They've trained on it either separately or together, but at an emergency scene, they can blend together well and flow and make the job occur easier and be accomplished with minimal effort and all. And to where, again, a training officer overseeing the program, developing things of that are shared, and it brings it together and makes it for a stronger, more unified operation across the board. Another area that we felt that would be very good was developing an area-wide training facility. We looked at the community, we looked at the area. There is no training building, multi-story type training tower, a live burn facility to perform fireground evolutions. And we feel that the department should take the lead with other Darke County departments and explore the feasibility of building an area-wide training center that would certainly be a benefit to both the city and the township, but also would be a benefit to the mutual aid partners in the rest of the county, so that you had a facility that everyone could use in concert. In looking at fire prevention, we had two recommendations. There we felt, as we looked at training and the expertise of the township captain with training, is the city assistant chief is the primary fire inspection officer for the city. Draw upon his talents and ability to oversee the program for both the city and the township, and have a unified, structured approach to fire prevention. The same concept would carry over into fire investigation. Both departments have fire investigators, but that be under the overall coordination of the city assistant chief that would be the lead person. While we're looking at that, another area that we have had a lot of experience, successful experience with, is a regional fire investigative team. And we recommended that the chiefs take the lead with the Darke County Fire Chiefs for developing a program where that all of the fire investigators in the county work as a team together. The ability, when you have a major fire, you're bringing together a number of people where they can work in their particular areas of expertise and specialty. They're used to working together. They can blend and provide a very organized approach to fire investigation. They're doing it more frequently because they would be going to each other's fires for investigation. So you've got skill sets. You have the opportunity to go use those skills and enhance those skills, so you can do a more thorough job in doing fire investigation. And that's a recommendation we felt would warrant consideration. Oh, wrong button, sorry about that. How do I get out of that?
Just click on it.
You just click in
Click anywhere.
right there.
Oh,
Right click.
do what?
Right click.
Here.
Or not.
There, okay, thank you. You gave me too many gadgets up here. I get in trouble. Oh, my. Certainly, carrying forth from fire prevention and fire investigation would be rolling over into public education. Both organizations are committed to providing public education to the citizens that they service. They're looking at trying to prevent fires, minimize damage, and make it a safer community. Again, if we do it as a joint initiative in a similar approach, drawing upon the skill sets of the city assistant chief, the township training officer, working in collaboration to oversee that program, we only think it would be a stronger program for the entire area. Okay.
We also looked at the communications and dispatch operations in the area. As you're aware, the Dark County 911 Communications Center handles the communications for the township. And then, of course, the city of Greenville has their police and fire dispatch center working with their safety forces as well. That section has 11 recommendations. We're not going to go through every single one of them tonight in the interest of time, but there is one that we did want to make sure that we covered, and probably the most impactful recommendation is to merge the separate dispatch centers into a single joint public safety communication center. This would really help achieve both departments maintain or rise to the highest level of service, give the best service to the citizens. Very frequently, the separate communication centers present the potential for a delayed response, particularly when transferring a call is necessary, which happens very frequently with cellular telephones, which I would imagine the majority of the calls come in that way. So, for example, if a cell call is placed and it's answered by the Dark County 911 Communication Center, but the call is in the city, that call needs to be transferred to the city dispatch center. So there's a kind of a built-in delay there. A lot of areas are going to joint communication centers that cover larger regions, so they can have a streamline and efficiency, because as Mr. Pruer mentioned very early, in most emergencies, whether it's emergency medical or a fire, time is really the enemy. And that's what we're trying to cut down, to make sure that the forces can have enough time to respond, can get there rapidly to provide mitigation to whatever the situation is. In regards to finances, we looked at the funding variables for both the township and the city, how both of their operations are funded. So levies, income tax, and EMS billing were the three popular methods. The levies and the EMS billing more so for the township, and of course the income tax more so for the city. Levies, as you're probably aware, provide fixed funding. However, that yield reduces somewhat over time from the millage. For an example, a $500,000 levy that gets voted on this year, let's say in 2021, still only collects $500,000 in 2026, even though property values have increased. So that's almost a fixed funding source. As it comes to income tax, that's has some difficulties as well, or some variables, I should say. It's dependent on the economy, not only locally, but nationally. The fluctuations that occur in the economy and the business community affect the income tax. And then EMS billing, same thing. It's very dependent on the calls for service and the level of calls for service. There are different billing rates for advanced life support and basic life support and whatnot. As the calls increase, obviously there's more revenue, but if calls decrease, there would be less revenue. And of course, nobody has any control over that. It really comes to the health and health prevention of the citizenry. Obviously, personnel, no secret there that is one of the largest expenses of any organization, whether it's a public or private organization. And this is the same, or the same holds true in this case. One of the main components of that is healthcare. It is a significant percentage of the cost, but we do feel that the blended operation would provide some opportunity to possibly reduce these costs by having a larger employee pool, maybe get a better rate and bring the cost down. And then, of course, apparatus, we talked about that briefly. Apparatus is a one-time cost. There is a replacement schedule in both departments. But that said, those one-time costs are very, very expensive. Recently, I was speaking with a fire chief in our area. They just purchased an ambulance and it was over $200,000. Ladder trucks are well over $1 million. Pumpers are $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, depending on how they're configured. So that equipment is extremely expensive. It does require some planning, but we do feel that the blended operation can help save some of those one-time costs by merging and reducing the fleet.
Okay. All of our sections basically come together to this section, which is a blending of services. That's the crux of the report. And to go through those, there's a variety of methods of dealing with blending of fire departments. When we think of blending, initially our thoughts turn to forming a fire district. However, there are other options available relative to blending of services. One is called functional blending, where programs of individual departments are joined and performed as one organization. Looking at, here's some examples: automatic response, training, communications, fire prevention. Your departments are working hard and automatic response and doing collaborative training now. The two chiefs are working very closely together and trying to draw upon the abilities and the resources of each agency to the betterment of the entire community. So they're already into a level of functional blending. They're doing that. This is one that has been used by a number of organizations at varying levels. These can increase and grow as they get comfortable with doing things and adding to them as they move forward. Another is operational blending. This is separate departments joining operationally, administratively, and functioning as one while remaining legally separate. It's saying we're going to put our departments together on a 365-day process. They'll function as a department, but we're still going to own our organization and all. We're not going to totally put them together as a new entity. And then you look at functionally fully merged fire district. This is, when we think of it, we go to a fire district. A fire district is clearly defined under Ohio statutes. There's a whole section on how you create a fire district. It is an involved legal process to do. The separate departments are completely combined and become a totally new fire department, new fire service. They have a separate governing board. They have to create a new taxing authority to operate a fire district. You cannot have the same name of the department. You have to even go out and and re-letter the truck with a new name to be a fire district. But it totally brings them together. All the assets, all the liabilities are brought together and formed into a totally new governing authority. When we looked at this, and believe me, we put countless hours into trying to look at what you were doing, the good things you are doing in the area, and how to bring that together in the easiest way to approach it without looking at some of the problems and pitfalls that you could encounter in doing a district. And as we looked at developing a blending strategy for you, our recommendation was to merge the departments through a council of governments. Ohio Revised Code gives the ability for any two political entities or multiple entities in the state to merge together and to do a specific function, to share a service, to do anything that you are legally entitled to do as a township trustees or as a city council. This is saying you could do it with them. You could do something with a school district. You could do it with county commissioners. Any governmental makeup in the state can come together with another governmental entity and do a function. Historically, councils of governments have been used by many departments to create regional hazardous materials teams or regional technical rescue units, to where not one entity has money, resources to do it, but they would combine to do that. But what we're seeing now with the current change in many governments is they're broadening that out to include full services and things. And as we did the research on this, fire departments blended together certainly qualify as a council of governments operation. What we're seeing is the council of governments would operate under a board, a council of governments board makeup. They would run the fire department operations, and that would be the whole function and focus of that board is operating the fire departments. How we saw the makeup of the board was to have it even, that there be, from the township, there be a trustee, there be a citizen. From the city, there be a city council member, there be a citizen. As the fifth on the board, we recommend looking at a representative of the medical community. Given the amount of activity that the fire departments are involved with EMS, we felt that it would be good to have that as a neutral, but still involved with a significant service delivery aspect of the department. That could be the medical director for the township, who is a physician that lives and works in the area. It could be the president of the hospital, or whomever the board would decide to have. But our feeling that neutral, it would be good to have a representation of the medical community. Okay, and again, these are the strategies and how you get to making a council of governments operation. You get down to the next question of departments and employees. As we looked at the varying ways of developing those, there are two ways you can have. You can retain control of your department. It can be the township department, it can be the city department, but with a direction to you will function and operate under the Council of Governments and all of that. But the department resources and the employees still are employees of the respective jurisdiction. You can do that, or you can merge into a COG department to where that you agree to put your employees and your apparatus together in a department that's overseen by this board made up of trustees and council and citizens to operate the department. In that case, the employees become COG fire department employees. All of their pension and everything of that moves over into that type of setup and all. It can move in those directions. Now looking at how you implement, you've decided to blend your departments, choosing one of those options that we've given you. Now you're going to implement how you operate. First is the administrative component. The leadership and control of the department. We see that there's a chief and an assistant chief in both the city and the township. What we see is blending the 4 chiefs into an administrative command team. Out of that, 1 would be selected to be the fire chief, 3 would be assistant chiefs functioning in support capacities to the chief. Again, this would be the Council of Governments' decision on how you would structure it. But we see that as being the best way to blend and bring together the strengths of both departments and standardize and make them function as one organization. In looking at that, we see these would be the major duties that the fire chief would oversee. Primarily, he would be the strategist. He would work with the governments to ensure that their expectations are being met, provide directions to ensure the department are meeting the goals, and oversee all the aspects of fiscal, personnel, and operations, and be a chief senior chief at major emergencies. The supporting chiefs would be assigned these areas based upon their expertise and experience, from personnel to fiscal, fire prevention, public ed, personnel recruitment, overall supervision of station officers and personnel, coordination and direction of emergency scenes, training and certifications, EMS operations, oversee the auxiliary and volunteer personnel, facilities, equipment, and all. So they would have all of these duties that they would oversee under the overall direction of the fire chief, who would answer to the board, again, your joint board. Other aspects of implementation strategies, certainly there's the operational component of how it operates. One thing that we recommended was moving a paramedic unit to the Greenville City Station so that you have an ambulance further north and splitting the response district between the 2 stations. That would get a unit into the northern part of the city faster. It would provide enhanced service to the north and the west portion of the township because it would be further north and easier to reach that area. while the other primary medic unit would be functioning out of the township station. A spin-off of doing that, if you'll remember, Mr. Shaw showed the slide of the impact upon the township, that 23% of the time your personnel are committed to EMS calls. If a unit were now running out of the city, that would help reduce that number down, because it would help level the playing field between calls, that the unit running in the north would be taking those calls. Therefore, more your people would be staying in the township station more, and help bring those numbers more into alignment. It's a suggestion. Station supervision, you both have lieutenants in your organization. We recommend that the stations continue to be supervised by the lieutenants as they currently are. We look at using the captain rank for those existing officers to be the shift supervisors, to do the day-to-day coordination of the stations and the operation of the shift, that they be the shift supervisor. We feel that blending the auxiliary component of the city and the township's volunteers into one group would have benefit to both organizations, because now you have a stronger pool, so that if you are responding to a fire call, you've got them both rolling together. They're functioning together for training and operations, and making them one combined organization would strengthen both groups. Support services, we've already talked about all of these and the areas that we see to enhance and strengthen them: in training, fire prevention, fire investigation, and public education. Standardization component is another thing to be considered. Right now you have dissimilar breathing apparatus between the departments. One won't interact with the other or interchange with the other. When you go to do things in the future, is to look at trying to do things where you have more commonality of equipment, and also that they do work together better. A suggestion here is to explore a firefighter grant for breathing apparatus, which they are providing. So there is federal monies out that could re-equip both departments with new breathing apparatus, and it wouldn't impact your budgets because the dollars are coming out of the federal firefighter program. Communications component, what Mr. Shaw went over, we can't stress enough the fact of having combined dispatch. When you're running automatic calls together, the transfer of problems of calls all takes time. And where you have a singular dispatch operation, it improves efficiency, streamlines the service, and makes it function better. Another problem is difference in radio channels and things of this nature. Where there have been problems on fire grounds where sometimes radio channels aren't transferred, or a person is calling for help on one channel and his other people don't hear him, and things of that. The more that you can make communications a seamless process between the organizations, in however you go about dealing with blending, but making communications function more efficiently, is it's better for the community, it's safer for the firefighter. Fiscal component, we've shared some areas in that area. We do see there's some ground for evaluation in the future. Things in looking down the road in staffing is as you get the system up and going, we are recommending all positions be retained and held in both departments. But with retirements and things, there may come a time that you realign your personnel aspect. Wages is an area to be negotiated between the board and labor, and that would be an area to be looked at and addressed. Healthcare, again, where you can pool together, develop a consortium, broaden the pool, you have the opportunity to reduce your costs in healthcare. Apparatus, right now you have a 19 vehicle fleet, 19 pieces of equipment. We envision reducing that to a 17 vehicle fleet, and that includes adding a 4th medic unit so that you have 4 medic units to provide service to the area where you have an existing 3 now. So that would be reducing some, but growing the fleet in that area. This would be by providing apparatus that are more designed for specific functions and things of that nature. In summary, what we see, blending of services, meaning for the city of Greenville and for Greenville Township, is a centralized dispatch operation. Again, strengthening dispatch to address those problems that we've discussed. Improved response to emergencies by relocating a paramedic unit north. You can improve delivery of service to the northern part of the city and also to the north and northwest part of the township, and leveling out the staffing issues. Pardon me. Enhanced and expanded training, as we've talked about, a strong in-depth training program is paramount to a good emergency scene operation. Strengthen public education. Every fire that we prevent, it makes for a safer community. It protects the taxing base of the community so that we retain jobs and businesses within our area. Streamline apparatus fleet we've discussed, and a centralized command and leadership team where they're working in concert for the betterment of the community. What's this mean to the community, to the taxpayer? First is an effort to control duplication of services. You don't each have to have everything, but together you can do it in a more equitable manner. Maintain or reduce cost. We see your costs being at the level they are or in time to possibly even go down for you. But we do not see an increase in cost for what services you're having. Improve the efficiency and the effectiveness. You're doing auto aid, but we're making this stronger through a stronger training program, realignment of EMS units, strengthening the support services so that the efficiency and the effectiveness of the organization grows. Greater staff flexibility. Here you've got a variety of chief officers functioning in roles to where they're drawing upon their expertise and abilities to take those particular programs and move them forward. Your training staff blended together, your fire prevention staff blended together, your fire investigators blended together. All of those things grow and develop and build the organization to be a stronger, more cohesive service. Overall, it rolls into the point, it's providing an increased scale of services for the taxpayer. He's not paying any more money, but he's getting a stronger program. We would like to thank the departments and the township trustees, the city council for your leadership and cooperation in helping us provide this report. And that's our presentation on our report. We would be happy to take questions and answer anything that you may have.
Well, we can open the floor.
Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a concern with the EMS unit going uptown.
Mhm.
How you suggest that be staffed?
Well, the city has a number of people that are already paramedic unit or trained. And so staffing could be absorbed from within their makeup.
No.
What about if we had a chief that decided to retire and then a civil service tests have to be given, and who would be eligible for that?
That's based on your local civil service rules now. We're not aware of how that process works. You'd have to consult your
But it
civil
would
service.
civil service would still play into it.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
So currently, if we was to do a joint, currently, the Greenville Fire Department ultimately reports to the Safety Service Director. So this new board, any HR issues or personnel issues or so, who would be taking care of that?
It depends on how you set it up. So one of the benefits we see of a council of governments is you get to define when you make the articles of incorporation, or basically the bylaws, of what the functions of that council of governments is going to be. Put in what you want, you leave out what you don't want. If you want to take that on and leave the HR function respective to each jurisdiction, each community, you don't put it in, and you write that each community will be responsible for their own HR function. So you get to craft it basically from the ground up to put in those services and functions that you so desire.
So, which your presentation helped, by the way, thank you for all of the time that you guys have put in, because there's a lot of great information in here. Some stuff probably some of us didn't want to hear, see, but thank you for that. I guess through reading this and going off into the weeds in some of this, it looks like you were not big fans or not big proponents of joint districts, and obviously are leaning more towards that council of governments. It kind of looks like under the one structure of the council of governments, I forget which one it was. It looks like that is not all that dissimilar to a joint district. So why not just go the route of the joint district? What is the benefit to that, or what are the pros and cons to both of them, I guess?
Well, with the fire district, you have to go out and get a new funding source. And so you have to take the money that the city gets from income tax and go out and pass levies to generate that amount of money, which we've heard that could be up to 9.5 mils of to operate the fire department. And whereas with the Council of Governments, your funding stays the same. They pay their money out of the township or the city income tax, and you pay your money out of your existing levies in the township. Whereas if it's a joint fire district, now it's being funded from one pot with all new levies and millage.
So in a joint district, could the two entities kick their respective funds into that joint district pool? But if any new funds needed to be generated down the road, the joint district could handle that on its own?
It's our understanding that when you form a joint district, it becomes its own governing body and needs its own funding source. You'd have to check with your legal folks for a clarification on that answer. Our knowledge of it right now is no, that it would need to have its own funding source, which would be a separate levy.
Okay.
So basically you'd just be starting over.
Pretty much. Right. The other advantage we saw from the Council of Governments is, I don't know how to put this delicately, but sometimes mergers don't always work out. Things happen. People decide that it's not in their best interest for their community to maintain that relationship. So a Council of Governments is much easier to end that agreement if that were to occur. In a joint fire district, it's much more difficult because you've taken the resources, put them under this entity, this separate entity. You pretty much have gone all in when it comes to a fire district. What we see is the Council of Government concept being utilized to get people used to the idea, work out the kinks and those types of things. It can progress to its own joint fire district at some time in the future, but it doesn't have to. So it does give you both of the communities the flexibility to be able to determine the best needs for their community.
If I understood correctly, on the Council of Government structure, both the city and the township could convert their employees to employees of that entity.
Yes,
That's an option.
they could do that. Yes.
Okay.
They don't have to, but they could. Again, it's how you write the bylaws.
And then back to your point about, so like a joint district, you said trucks would have to be relettered, all that stuff. Under like the Council of Government structure, are you under those same types of requirements? So just as equipment would be replaced, you could address those issues.
Sure.
Yeah.
So it's a smoother way.
I've seen things in other states, especially where they have county fire departments, say around Washington, DC, Maryland and Virginia those are county fire departments in Fairfax County, Montgomery County, big, metro counties there. And a lot of those will be, it's the such and such fire department and then they have in like script on it, servicing the city of, whatever, because they put a little something on there to say what's going on. And you could do that. You could add a little script line on there that, that it's something servicing the Greenville community or area, or, whatever you feel comfortable with. You as a group are in total control of how it works.
And the analogy we use is a fire district, you're pretty much jumping in head first into the water. The Council of Governments, you're kind of sticking your toe in and easing into it and just kind of seeing that the water's, deep enough or not too deep, not too hot, not too cold. And if you want to go forward deeper into the water, you certainly can. If you don't, you have options there too.
Yeah.
So, I have a question, and you folks might not be able to answer. It might be a fire chief or someone else, but how is the current county hazmat set up?
County has falls under the county fire chiefs coordinates with EMA. So the Greenville Fire Department, the city's fire department, all of our members are on that team. It's basically supplemented with X amount of people from all over the county on that team. So from all county response, if we have a hazmat incident, but a bulk of those members are going to come from
So where does the funding come from that?
So every community is, there's a contribution, each community is assessed. Yeah, and it goes in the EMA and gets distributed and it's in the county fire chief's budget, basically.
So is there a board? Is there, who runs it? How does that work? I'm just,
Any Sailor would be the EMA director, so she's a big part of that. It's coordinated effort with the fire chiefs too.
so she reports.
So they're maintaining the trailers, the insurance and everything else. They're here at the city and the county garage. Any of the departments that partake in the chiefs can go get those trailers.
If needed.
deploy them.
Okay, but it's, so it's,
Necessarily come from the city.
so it's kind of run from the county.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So I've got a question for you.
Yes,
And it kind of pertains to this, but it's more looking down the road. So let's say we dip our toe in the water with a council of governments, and then that works well. And then we transition to a fire district. With the fire district, what is the potential for growth in a fire district? And the reason I ask that, and this might blow people up somewhere, but as we all know, it's getting harder and harder to find volunteers.
yes, sir.
So if there was like a centralized fire district, could it add another location down the road to eventually maybe spread out and cover the county?
Either,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't know. Common sense would, the answer would be you could add to it, but I don't know if that's the legal answer. So you'd have to check with your legal counsel on how that works. I mean, they certainly can expand. I know in some areas they have. I'm just not sure of all what went on in the background for that expansion to happen. That sound right?
And certainly a council of governments operation in either if you're retaining ownership or you put them into a COG department could expand.
Yeah. So the reason we have some experience with council of governments, the department I was chief before I retired, the council of governments ran the hazmat team. And similar to what goes on in Dark County, each community paid an assessed fee. The department was run, or the hazmat team was run by the fire chiefs, and we had an annual meeting with the elected officials. It was the mayors, they appointed themselves, and we would report to them the number of calls, the equipment. They would have, we'd put in budget requests. They would either approve or disapprove the budget, so on and so forth. But it was pretty much the fire chiefs that kind of ran the day-to-day function of that. Communities could come and go as they felt the need. We did have a community that kind of wanted to try it on their own until they found out how expensive it was and then came back in. And it was just a simple matter of a regular majority rule vote of changing the bylaws. In our area, we have a dispatch center, a regional dispatch center that currently has 33 communities in it, and is probably going to pick up some more. It's growing all the time. So the Council of Governments is a very flexible way. It's relatively new. I think that law was passed either in the late 90s or early 2000s when Columbus thought government efficiency was a big push. There was a group of legislators down there that started coming up with some pretty creative ideas. And this was one of the ideas that came from that era to give government the ability, the flexibility, if you will, to try to look for efficiencies to better serve the residents.
Well, the reason I asked that, throughout your presentation, there was several times where you recommended working with other departments more on a
Yes.
countywide basis.
Right.
Sure.
And and again, could be 20 years down the road, could be 100 years down the road, whatever, but everything's going to get better with consistency.
Yes.
Yes.
I just wanted to know if there's going to be opportunity, and it sounds like barring anything major on the legal side, it's entirely possible with either one.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
I would think so too. And I think forming a fire district now would be way premature. And we got an option to go with the Council of Governments and sticking our toe in. That's probably the best way to go.
And that gives you the ability to, basically try it.
Exactly.
And you haven't went into the water up to here. It's only your toe.
When you got to undo a fire district, that's a lot of legality there too, right?
Well, you've got the title of the apparatus, the employees, the buildings, basically, if you form a fire district, you put a table out there and you start pitching deeds and titles into the pile. And
You're
out of
creating
that comes the
monstrosity.
fire department.
You don't need to create this monstrosity to do this.
No, because with the other form, you can do it as you can build into it.
Right.
So what about labor relations, or, you're taking two unions and working them together? How does that work?
Well, again, a lot of that comes down to the negotiations process of how you blend those, the two existing contracts together. Are the employees going to be employed by the COG or their individual communities, and they maintain their current contracts? That's all part of that process of building it from the ground up. I mean, you're basically starting from scratch.
This can be tailor-made, sounds like.
Yes, sir.
So quite a bit of flexibility involved in this process.
So if I understand correctly, if we go under the COG, it could be just one union, one contract,
It could.
everything. Okay.
It could. Yeah.
If you would form a council of governments department, then most likely, in your negotiate with the COGS board negotiation with labor, you would probably have one contract.
So those employees would not almost, they would have to form their own union, or they would have to form, their own union to find whatever union they're going to be a part of. Correct?
Correct. Your career personnel, I believe, are in IFF. Is that right, guys? Yeah. So that part's already been done.
The city
For
is
the
in
city, the township is
IFF.
separate.
The township's union is engineers and operators.
Oh, okay. So that would be a decision they'd have to make.
Right, that's what I'm getting at. It. So the employees, if everybody went that direction, then the employees of the Council of Governments department would have to pick
Yes.
where they would want to go.
Right. Yes. They, as employees, they do get to choose who their representative organization is.
Do you know of any legal counsel that would be experts, or at least know more than everyone else in this room as far as the Council of Government structure?
We certainly have contacts. Admittedly, they're more in the Cleveland area, where we hail from. But yes, there are individuals who have had these discussions, been in this situation, and built it from the ground up. So they've run this race once before, and could probably be a good resource for successes and failures and pitfalls and those types of things of the process. And we could certainly pass those names on to you.
Right. Yeah, I think that'd be great. I think both agencies have a lot of discussions to be had potentially as far as all this goes.
If I may, I'm going
Yes,
to
ma'am.
read a line out of your report, and this is for all of us. It says, change can be very unsettling. And many times we become complacent with our current situation and resist change because we don't know what it will bring. I have to admit that I think the COG part of this makes sense for such a diverse group of people. We all have our ideas and we all have our opinion, but the bottom line is the safety and the welfare of all people concerned. our citizens, our communities. You know, we may have the north end, we may have the south end. You know, I choose to live in the south end just because I like it. But, you know, but that doesn't mean I don't shop in the north end. So
Exactly.
I think I would urge all of us, myself included, to look at this, you know, and this report is phenomenal. I would urge all of us to look and think about what dipping our toes in, as opposed, you know, nobody wants to be over-regulated. And I think if we jump into a fire district, we're going to find there's a big, mean monster lurking out there for us. So I thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation.
Thank you.
I agree with Dolores. We don't need to get into a fire district. Be crazy.
So we have some firefighters back there and some EMS. I mean, thoughts?
Yeah, what's your thoughts?
If you would, will you come up to the podium so the people online can hear?
Look, at the end of the day, our employees for the city, you know, it's one of our most valuable assets. So we want to make sure our employees, and I'm sure the township feels the same way.
Exactly.
So we want your input.
Hi, I'm Wayne Brennan. I'm the union president for the city, local 1101. Right now, we're working together. Both the chiefs have done a great job combining services, training together more, doing more EMS training, fire training together. We just want to do what's best for the citizens, to give that proper fire protection or that proper EMS, whatever is best for the citizens. But right now, we're kind of working towards that unity together. Like I said, both chiefs have been working together and just putting things together. But moving forward, we would like to get more hands-on with each other and do more things together and stuff like that. So I really don't have much more to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Like what you said.
Brian Phillips, you probably want to say something, don't you? He's gonna throw a rock at my house tonight.
Oh, yeah.
He's
Watch
my-
your windows tonight.
Brian's my neighbor.
Brian Phillips, Assistant Chief of Greenville Township. I just want to thank everybody for coming together. I think this is a good opportunity to do something really good. Like Wayne said, both departments have made tremendous progress. It's amazing the relationship we have together, and we're just coming to one goal, and that is to serve the community. And hopefully that we can come to, or the political subdivisions can come to a decision that will keep this process going forward. That's all I can say.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with both. I don't want to speak out of turn. We're having a meeting with our members of our union tomorrow night where we'll kind of discuss things. So I don't want to speak, without, conferring with everybody else, but it sounds good and we're happy to work together and what's best for the community as well.
Thank you.
I think what's amazing is, 5 to 7 years ago, we could have probably never got this group together. We'd have been throwing rocks at each other.
That's no lie.
I think it's awesome where we're at right now and even having this on the table discussion. So I want to put that out there.
I would agree with John. I do think I want to add a comment to that though, because of some of the, let's say, difficult workings of the past. I think the COG, the separate entity, the neutrality there is something that we definitely need to look at, because I think there are people on both sides that might be a little hesitant because of that, but because of the past. And I think being able to have a governing body that's neutral would help out tremendously.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I agree.
Agree.
Yeah, you said a mouthful. This is probably the third or fourth time since I've been on council that we've had this discussion about combining dispatch or the possibility of doing so.
Well,
And
honestly, I think this is the start. You talk about dispatch, and dispatch is, that could be pretty heated when you start talking about that. But baby steps, a little bit here and a little bit more and a little bit more. Rome wasn't built in a day, and it's not going to be perfect in a month, but maybe 5 to 10 years down the road, it could be a very fine, well-oiled machine.
Right.
And you've got the nucleus of it, again, we cannot compliment your personnel from both sides for their professionalism, their dedication, their input to want to do the best thing for the community was clearly evident in all of our dealings.
And the other thing I really like in this report is the training and, making it a county, making kind of this department kind of that training hub for the whole county, having a facility where we could train, like I think Inglewood has it there on 70. They have a structure where they train.
Yeah.
That's something that, we have the land here in Greenville. I know one time it was kind of earmarked for that. We could get this together and have the funding for that. That would be awesome, where we could have Versailles, New Madison, whatever department help train.
So Russ and I and the mayor, we just met with Representative Jenna Powell last week to go after some different funding to build a countywide training facility. It would, it's very far off. We just went to her to look into some different funding options. But we have some land that we already own out next to Greenville Transit on KitchenAid Way that we kind of have earmarked for maybe a potential for a North Station if we would ever need it. It's large enough we could put a countywide training facility there, let the county use it, potential of even allowing adjoining counties to use it at a fee, train fire, train EMS. Russ has actually went down south and checked another facility out that we want something similar that we want to build, but it's already in the works.
So what are next steps from here? Do we each
Yeah.
retreat to our own entities for a meeting or two, kind of discuss and then come back at some point in November or December?
that would make sense to me. Mr. Burkett's not here, but I mean, I don't want to set a meeting tonight, but I feel
But
that would
just,
be
I
the
mean,
next step.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's all I'm.
You get a chance to,
Each entity is going to have some things that they want to bring out or whatever that they may not want to do in this meeting tonight.
Right.
But yet, it needs to be something worked out to work together.
Well, I think we needed to have this meeting this evening because I've read through this cover to cover twice and a half.
I'm with you.
It's a lot, but there were some things that you mentioned tonight that helped clarify or help me understand some concepts a little bit better. So I think now if we can go back to our own corners for a few minutes, not that it's adversarial, but go back to our own agencies and kind of discuss through some things, come up with questions, and then come back together, hash through each other's questions, and maybe continue pursuing this.
I agree. I think coming together tonight showed just how united we are in our thoughts of wanting to provide the best service. And it sounds like, we don't want to form a fire district, and we probably come to that conclusion already. But retreating and then coming back together at a later point just follows common sense.
And I think John mentioned it a while ago that, we want that input from the firefighters and the EMS people on both sides to do what's best for them also.
Exactly. Those are our people. They're the ones fighting the fires. We got to keep them happy.
You gentlemen have anything else for us?
We do not.
We appreciate you. You've done an excellent job. Go ahead.
Thank you.
What your thoughts are with dispatch.
Can't hear, sorry.
The question is, if we could expound more on the recommendation for dispatch.
Oh,
Did
Thank
I
you.
surmise that? We do understand that's going to be a difficult discussion because you have the two entities. There's investment in personnel, there's investment in equipment. I don't know where those investments are in their life cycle, or particularly the equipment. Again, my community, we were very fortunate. We did join the regional dispatch center that I spoke of. We had just updated our dispatch center 3 years prior with new equipment. So we were able to transfer that equipment over to the regional dispatch center. And we did save some money on, I'll call it an entry fee, but it's a buy-in. We didn't get that in depth with what the situation here is to really expound on it much more than we do recommend that it get done, which I know is not going to be easy, but it certainly is in the best interest of the community and the safety of the firefighters and potentially law enforcement if it goes all under one roof.
To make it work is probably something.
To make it work best, yes. I'll add that on there.
So I was getting that somewhat is that as we go back and talk about this individually, groups, unions, there's somewhere along, like you need to keep that in thought. You know, how may that work? Who else is involved in that? What their thoughts are?
Thank you.
I think whatever we do, we have to make our people whole. If we combine this together, is everyone staying on board. If we was to do that with dispatch down the road, those folks would go to the county or wherever we would decide. That would just have to be part of the agreement because we wouldn't want to displace anyone. That would be the only way I would be on board with it.
Always my first two thoughts, I think.
Yeah.
It's good for the community and we're gonna take care of our people.
Exactly.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
That's what we're here for.
Just to identify a time frame. If we decide, to do this and do the cog, so to speak, what, like how much what is the transition time? Can you give like beginning to develop, how fast does the whole process take? How fast, how long? Do you know what I'm saying? Just kind of give me a ballpark, a guesstimate.
I don't know if we can answer that question. And I'm
That's
not,
what I
I'm not
was afraid
trying to
of.
soft shoe my way out of a tough spot.
Let's see if you can.
Strike up the band.
I can see.
It really depends on you all of how rapid the decisions are made. How rapidly you can, bring about the change, the involvement of the employees and the labor groups, and how quickly that process goes. And those are very difficult for us to be able to put a stake in the ground and say, well, it should be about, X to X months or years or, whatever it would take.
You weren't going to hear from me in the next 2 weeks, okay? I was just kind of interested in, where our thought process should be,
Part of it would be also on, as you've mentioned, getting back with your groups and developing questions and things that you want to see is I think once you've come together and had a session, the November meeting and all of that you're discussing and having, and you start to get your hands around what you're looking at, the size of the pumpkin, so to speak, that we're looking at, being Halloween coming up here. I thought I'd throw that in. And it's agriculture, so whatever. But once you really get more of a grasp of what you're looking to do and what services you're going to want to do through the Council of Governments versus retain as individual jurisdictions and things of that. I think that will drive the timeline quite a bit.
Okay, thank you. I
Makes sense.
appreciate that.
The good thing is we're already headed in that direction, it seems. Both fire departments have been coming together a lot closer and over the past several years. And it seems like it was mentioned earlier, 7 years ago, we probably wouldn't even be talking about this, right?
Right.
Shouldn't be sharing the table. would we?
As we've said throughout the presentation, the cooperation between the council and the trustees, the fire departments is phenomenal. I've been in the fire service for a long time. And this is probably one of the best examples of community cooperation from you folk and the departments that I've ever experienced. It was a pleasure to do work for you. And we would look forward to doing other work for you if you need our services as we get further along. We would be happy to assist.
It would be great if every citizen of Greenville and Greenville Township could have heard these comments tonight to know what they have.
Very much so. Yes, sir.
Well, again, we thank you guys. We appreciate it. I'm sure we'll be leaning on you with more questions to come at a later time. Anyone else have any comments, questions, concerns that you want to get out tonight? If not, we're going to adjourn this meeting at 9:09. And thank you all for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you.